Lions just recovered a fumble.
Bits of wisdom.
It's Harry Houdini, I'm pretty sure.
That's when it kind of becomes Home Improvement After Dark.
I guess that leaves us at the question of the week.
Very good. I don't know if you noticed, Jordan, but a really cool aerial shot of the table. Reasonably funny.
User review.
Does everybody know what time it is?
Home Impodcast time.
That's right, a company that is an exact replica of Binford Tools is proud to present a Home Improvement Podcast. My name is Adam, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jordan. Jordan, how goes it?
It goes. How you doing, Adam?
Doing well, doing real well. What's new?
Not too much. It's been, a week since we talked?
Yeah, you'd mentioned before we started recording that you had some difficulty getting...
It's been a difficult morning for me.
You had some difficulty getting your rabbit in its cage for a veterinary appointment, and you had planned to have the appointment, and then the rabbit...
had to cancel
The
it.
rabbit just was not in agreement with the
I tried
with the
everything.
And
tried everything.
It just kept kind of scattering off, and you couldn't even find it. And I asked you if you thought that this kind of was how your life was going to go, and you seem to think that, yeah, you kind of always did expect this kind of...
Yeah, it's always was a dream of mine to chase rabbits around my house and try to, trick them into going into a cage with bananas and peppers and things like that.
Sounds like your morning lacked real dignity. I can just kind of envision you on some sort of like a white carpeted floor, kind of dangling carrots and bananas or cheese or whatever it is rabbits eat. Maybe some grass of some sort. But you couldn't do it.
Well, I knew it was going to be a bad day when I set my alarm. I thought for 8:45 a.m., but it was 8:45 p.m.
Do you think the rabbit?
I'm lucky I woke up.
Do you think the rabbit had a hand in that last minute kind of switch?
I think you mean a paw.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the old switcheroo. Yeah, Lily was just an interesting creature this morning and really defeated her dad. So I guess I'll have to try again sometime later this week. But
this is just, and I knew as soon as you told me, I said we got to bring this up on air. This is something that our listenership.
I kind of wasn't going to do it, but
I know you weren't. But in the same way, you kind of want to talk about my dermatologist appointments and my ailments and force me basically, hand over fist to do my Jay Leno impression. I wanted to return the favor and kind of bring up this rabbit talk, but we'll leave it at that. I think is the rabbit caged currently?
Oh no, we don't have a cage for the rabbit.
Well, I think probably that's your problem. I think problem solved.
The rabbit is underneath the couch. She's got several hiding places.
That makes sense. All right, so I wanted to talk, do something we haven't done in a while. And that is talk about the IMDB message boards for Home Improvement. It's a ripe place for HI commentary and hot takes and ill-researched takes and opinions and spelling errors and bigotry and racism and all those things. So it's definitely a place we kind of want to be.
Yeah.
So Jordan, I want to talk about a couple things that I saw here just a couple minutes before the show. So the first thread, this comes from RBF08, and they want to know, just how much do you think Tim invested in the construction of the hot rod? $20,000, maybe $30,000? Seemed topical to me. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah.
As a man that knows a lot about cars and how much things cost.
Let me tell you, that 350 Chevy block engine that he's paying for, all that custom Ford whatever he's doing.
It's illegal to put a Ford motor in a Chevrolet car.
Yeah, it's kind of a felony from what I hear.
Well, so, Jordan, it doesn't sound like you know, but Brandy Starbright says, I'd say that day and age, good $25K. He built it from ground up, though. So at the high end, I'll say $40K. Then again, he was the host of a national TV show and used to start out by selling Binford tools. So with his connections and so forth, he probably got a lot either free or wholesale. Huge discounts.
Oh man, I didn't even think about that angle.
Brandy Starbright got it figured out.
I don't know about the national thing as far as like being a national star, but at least he's getting some good deals in the Metro Detroit area.
Well, Amy Jo Lab responds, all I can say is it could cost a fortune. We have a friend who restores vehicles, and then she talks about her friend that restores vehicles for the entire thread. So it's actually kind of just a pretty useless comment to bring in, but she did kind of want to get that out there.
She's got first-hand experience.
Well, her friend does, so she has second-hand experience. So that's the first one. Interesting, I thought.
Sure.
This one comes from Professor of Games, and that's games with a Z. And he wants to know, I guess he or she, do they ever reveal what Wilson's source of income was? I don't recall them doing so. He was obviously well-educated, well-read. Just wondering. What do you think? No one responded. So
well, yeah, I mean, I think we're all kind of clueless as to what he did.
I always assumed a professor.
Some sort of teacher, somebody who's done a lot of studying of various, maybe like a cultural class. Doesn't everybody take one of those in general education in their first couple of years of college, where it's like, we read books on like a tribe in Papua New Guinea and stuff like that. I don't know. I imagine him teaching that kind of a class.
I'll take your word for it, college boy.
You also are a college boy, if I recall, and more college than me.
Perhaps so. I guess professor, historian, combination of the two, perhaps. I don't know.
The man does a lot of reading, just because. I mean,
well, he's obviously well educated.
Yeah, you don't have to go to college to have those kind of attributes either.
Do you think Wilson was a professor of games?
Do you think Wilson posted that? He was wondering what people thought of where he got his money.
It's actually it was posted 2 days ago. That's weird. Well, people are still wondering. Professor of Games should get on board with our podcast. I'll reach out. All right, next post.
Better post something.
Next post is titled "I Don't Like Jill," and this is from Scott Johnson 28. What did Tim find attractive about her? He would have been much happier, single, watch sports, drinking beer. Lots of commas missing. He would have been much happier, single, watch sports, drinking beer. So,
I have an idea of what Scott Johnson does.
Well, Hish PTM responded shortly thereafter and said, "I like Jill," and that was the end of that. So
yeah, that really shut down that conversation.
That was it. So that one's kind of case closed.
You don't find very many people who are not on board with the Jill character.
On the message boards, you do. The majority of them, but that is also probably representative of people that frequent message boards. This one's kind of interesting. Okay, so what do we got here? Let me find it. So it starts out by talking about the yard being AstroTurf. I feel like we touched on that last time, but then things kind of go a little off the rails.
As they do.
As they tend to do. Vash Ramana asks, and another thing, why did Tim always wear a dress shirt and tie on tool time? Liberius responded with, "Oh, that was part of his persona, as was Al's plaid shirt and jeans. Remember, Tim was a former Binford salesman, so the collar and tie juxtaposed against the tool belt made sense. He was corporate and had the gift of gab that all good salesmen have. That's why John Binford let him do the show. On the other hand, Al was the former construction worker, a proud union man, no less, so his clothes fit." I thought that was interesting. I guess I didn't know Al was a construction worker.
I didn't either. I don't remember that being mentioned at all, but
perhaps later on.
These people sound like they know a lot.
Last one. Rind, I can't read this one. Unknown on the message board says, "I just saw Wilson's face, and it felt like I was doing something bad." Smiley face. So a little bit of Catholic guilt there, perhaps.
Poor guy. Yeah, I wonder if he took any slaps or anything for doing that.
Went to confession afterwards, and I just saw Wilson's face, and it felt kind of bad. So Jordan, that concludes, and we'll do that again in a couple of months or so. So,
I think that was fruitful.
Keep things fresh. Very fruitful for me, and hopefully for listeners as well. Speaking of fruitful for listeners, Jordan, cue those grunts for me, big dog.
Sure, it's all safe to me. Oh, no.
Now it's time for Bits of Wisdom.
This week's bit of wisdom comes from the Tim Allen text, "I'm Not Really Here." The chapter entitled 8. Fear, the opposite of love, comes from a feeling of separateness and impermanence. This has been your bit of wisdom.
Short and sweet this week, huh?
With the longer intro, I wanted to get to the episode. No, it was really hard to find one, so that was the best I could do. And you know what? He's right. He's absolutely right.
Yeah, he's spot on the nose.
As he so often is. But yeah, thank you, Tim, and thank you, listeners, for continuing to indulge in the very foolish bit of wisdom act. So, Jordan, what are we covering this week?
Yeah, let's indulge in episode 29, Heavy Meddle, Meddle. So, this episode was written by the Golden Trio, Finestra, McFadzean, and Williams, the creators of the show.
Triumvirate.
Yes. Aired on October 14th, 1992. We'll see lots of guest stars later on, and we'll talk about them as they come up. We've got a rather lengthy plot synopsis by Tony Topola. He or she starts immediately with a typo. It starts out, "It's weekend." Tim reveals to Al that he is going to put the 350 Chevy engine in his hot rod. Tim has invited some friends to help him. Some friends is in quotes, so I'm not sure if they're actual friends or not real friends.
That is a confusing addition by Tony Topola, because I view them as actual friends.
Yeah. So Al wants to come too. Tim thought Al would be spending the weekend with Greta, but Greta broke up with him. So Tim invites Al. Karen has broken up with Greg, so we get Karen in this episode as well. And she's visiting Jill when Tim tells somebody, I guess, that Dave Gibbons is coming. Jill wants to introduce him to Karen. Tim can see what Jill has in mind and protests. He needs Dave in the garage to help with the engine. Another friend of Tim's, Bob, brings his pregnant wife. The next to arrive is Hank and Wanda, and Tim's original plan was that no one would bring their wife along. Finally, Jill gets the idea that they should barbecue. ...
Well, I guess I should say take care.
Yeah, that's it. As always, it's just hard to read some of those, but we got through it.
I'm gonna say maybe we just don't even need to read them anymore, but that's something we'll talk about later. There are no keywords this week. Just when I thought I had a new bit.
What keywords do you think are gonna be? I got a few.
Okay.
Maybe.
All right. You give yours, and I'll start thinking of mine.
Western theme.
Okay, one word though.
Oh, okay. So hat. That goes along with the trunk. Dating.
Ooh.
Barbecue.
Ooh, barbecue is one of mine. Coffee.
Ooh, nice. Engine.
Bully.
McGovern.
McGurn.
McGurn, sorry. What else is there? That might be it for now.
Well,
linoleum. I'm gonna say linoleum.
Lonely. Because Karen's lonely, Al's lonely. No.
Maybe we should do this after the episode.
Nah, I don't think so. I like it now.
All right, so that's a few that we have for now, and you'll hear them sprinkled throughout the episode and why we are saying them. So we're gonna open up on Tool Time at the end of a show, and I thought you might want to talk about the camera work here. It's an interesting shot. They do a long zoom shot that comes from the last row, almost as if someone was in the last seat and they stood up and are walking down the stairs. And it shows Al and Tim there.
I'll level with you. Didn't notice it at all.
Oh,
Took
man.
no notice of the camera work. Did take notice of the Lifetime-esque introductory music. It was like an after school special. It was like a moral lesson had just been learned. It immediately kind of like a kind of thing. But yeah,
that's exactly what I think of.
It was exactly like that. You take another listen, but yeah. Sorry, go ahead and continue.
Yeah, so Al wants to get started on next week's project for the show, which is a shed over the weekend, building a shed. Tim says he can't. He's going to put the hot rod in the engine. Some friends are going to come over to help. But he didn't invite Al, which seems strange to me. His excuse for not inviting Al is he thought Al and Greta would be at the big linoleum exhibit in Metro Detroit. So that would have been fun.
This immediately answers our Greta Post questions from last week.
Very
so
timely.
That was nice. The episode begins with Alex sweeping alone on the stage, and I kind of wondered, isn't that someone else's job? Al's kind of the talent, so it kind of sort of surprised me that he would also be in charge of cleaning up after the show.
They just don't have big budget, as much as we'd like to think. That I guess they just don't. But
yeah,
or maybe Al likes to clean.
That,
Or maybe that's what Al does when he's sad, because I see him sweeping several times.
right, yeah, I don't know. It does seem very much like what are Al's job responsibilities, and isn't someone else kind of tasked with whatever? I think I guess ultimately it doesn't matter, but
No, I think it's a good point, though.
yeah.
Yeah, so Al is sad. That he talks, he at first says that he kind of broke up with her, said they should see other people, but Greta really dumped him, which, as you said, cleared up our question from last week. As Al leaves the stage, he kind of just says, "Good, have a good weekend." He realizes that he's not invited. Tim then thinks, "Well, I guess maybe I should invite Al." So he invites him to come over. Al runs back on stage and is super excited. Asks if there is a theme, to which Tim says it's Wild West themed. So that's our cold open, and this one actually pertains to the episode, which I thought was.
Yeah, it's a good setup for what is to come, to be sure. Better than the last few. So next scene after the cold open, after the Iron John rock, Karen and Jill, they're on the couch, and Karen, she's continuing to have man trouble, and they're prepping.
Can't imagine why.
Yeah, it's unfathomable, really. They are prepping to go see a movie, and then Tim is getting ready to have all of his pals over for the hot rod. I don't know. Is it a party? Are they doing work? I guess that's kind of the issue. The whole
it's
episode.
a work party.
It's a work party, even better. Those are the best kind.
Yeah.
So yeah, Karen's complaining, and Jill is kind of immediately getting the idea that she wants to set Karen up with one of Tim's friends, specifically Dave, because Dave is very sensitive and so on. Did you notice the kind of gratuitous Coca-Cola product placement in this scene?
I noticed that Karen was pouring in the Coca-Cola into her drink for like an hour.
She pours it in, making sure that it's very much
facing the
camera. And Tim comes in with just a bunch more, like putting it in the refrigerator. So she's drinking some, he's putting more in the fridge.
It's a real Coca-Cola.
Just something that noticed.
Moment.
Meanwhile, Randy and Mark enter, and they got
Brad.
They got quote jumped by the. How do we say it? Is it McGurn boys? They got jumped by a bunch of bullies, and
Paul and Vinny McGurn. They sound like a real duo.
Yeah, they sound like somebody from the Jersey Shore, I would say.
Yeah, a little bit. I thought it was interesting. The boys yelled the insults that the boys hurl at the McGurns. I think Randy says jerks, Mark says doo-doo heads, and then Brad says punks. So they all got.
What if Brad was just like, "You son of a b****, you stupid son of a b****"? It'd be a different episode.
It perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, Brad. We've seen Brad this season be a little bit rough around the edges, so I wouldn't have been that caught off guard.
Brad just puts them both in the hospital immediately. Then it would earn that Lifetime music that the episode opens with.
Absolutely, yeah. So Randy's shoes are up in the tree. That's what the McGurn boys did. Tim wants the boys to beat them up, but Jill wants to have them over for lunch. So a real meeting of the minds there. Tim goes to the garage. As you said, this is where Jill is kind of getting the idea of setting up Dave and Karen. Dave is a secure, sensitive, sweethearted man. And at that moment, Bob arrives, a knock on the door. Bob arrives, another friend. He comes in carrying some beer, and Karen gets excited. She thinks Bob is Dave, but it's not. And then Bob's pregnant wife, Leslie, arrives. So
we should also say that Tim is very much against this from the start.
Yes, it's a surprise to Tim.
Yeah, he immediately, he wants nothing to do with it. He wants Jill to abstain from it, but Jill continues to push throughout the whole episode.
Yeah, and he's also, not excited about all these wives arriving because he was just planning to have the guys and do this work.
Well, was the idea that the wives were all going to come meet and then go to a movie?
No, I think it was just Karen and Jill were supposed to hang out. And so the other wives were not supposed to be involved at all. I think they were just supposed to hang out at home.
So let's talk about Bob and Leslie right now. They're the youngest couple of the, I guess it's just two couples that end up coming, and then Dave. So Bob is played by Tom Gallup. He has 63 credits to his name. Most recently, he was in Insidious Chapter 3. He's been in The Bourne Supremacy, The Bourne Ultimatum, AI Artificial Intelligence, and then one of my favorite 90s movies, Jerry Maguire. Leslie is played by Jessica Tuck, 118 credits to her name. She's still very active. She did 23 episodes of True Blood, 113 episodes of One Life to Live and was in the J.J. Abrams film Super 8. And they're both pretty good guest stars. They don't leave a real.
They're not asked a lot.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, Leslie makes some pretty lame like pregnant female jokes, But
yeah, I'm sure those were written by her.
Yeah, well, she still delivers them, and that's I attribute them to her. Who do we get? Who comes in next?
Yeah, so then Wanda busts through the door, and Wanda also is not supposed to be here. She's a little bit older and a real tough cookie. She arrives with her husband Hank, and they're a little bit older, and they're fighting a little bit about driving, which we saw earlier with Al and Greta. So they're having maybe what Al and Greta would have turned into if they would have stayed together.
Not since Blitzen on the Santa Claus episode has a firecracker of this magnitude entered Home Impodcast. Wanda comes in and she is just firing on all cylinders. She's her fastball is it's on today. Wanda and Hank, yeah, they are an older couple, and I was struck by the age disparity of the couples. It's just like a weird conglomerate. It's like 20s,
30s, and then 50s or 60s.
Yeah, maybe even 60s. So Wanda and Hank. Wanda, I recognized. Her name's Eileen Brennan. She has 123 credits to her name. 1980, she was nominated for an Oscar for Private Benjamin. Other films include The Sting, Murder by Death, Jeepers Creepers, and what I recognize her in is she's Miss Peacock in the movie Clue. And I definitely like that one. Hank is played by Dion Anderson. He has 69 credits to his name, most notably The Shawshank Redemption. And then in Mr. Deeds, he plays... have you seen Mr. Deeds? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have.
Yeah, I have.
He plays the guy at the end that's in the boardroom scene where... Deeds gives that speech about how, he's like, this is the guy that says, I'd have beat my little red. You know what I'm talking about? Can you picture him? Yeah. Yes. He plays that guy. And they are okay, too. The couples are all, they're all
I think they do fine.
They're probably better than Bob and Leslie. Wanda, she's...
It's because of Wanda. She really brings it.
Wanda's been smoking for 60 years, her voice would indicate. And, she is not backing down from
She does not take any guff.
No, that's for sure. So we head out into the garage. The men are working, and I would say working in quotes because, as far as I can tell, they're all just kind of standing around the hot rod. And
they're looking at the engine, from what I see. Al walks in, right?
Yeah, Al walks in looking like a 2015 Pharrell Williams. He's got the 10-gallon hat and the cowboy outfit. He also, I guess he kind of looks like Woody from Toy Story as well. They have, to the other men's credit, they don't really make fun of Al when he arrives.
They're nicer than Tim.
They are nicer than Tim. They have some banter around that. Brad enters and says that one of the McGurn boys ruined his Lions helmet.
It was Vinny.
And this is why I retired the Lions just recovered a fumble bit, because I would have to have said it here as well, because every episode Brad is holding Lions paraphernalia, wearing something, and I would argue that his helmet's not ruined. He just put shaving cream in it. That's a pretty easy fix.
I mean, what is it like suede on the inside or something? I don't really understand.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's got some shaving cream in there. Tim, at first, puts it in his mouth because he thinks it's whipped cream, which still would be gross. Why would you do that?
That is
a sweaty helmet.
Gross.
But, so Brad picks up the hose, and Tim stops him, and he says, what did I tell you about making water balloons? And Brad says to fill them up real good so that they bust on contacts. So
it was kind of funny. Funny joke.
Yeah, I like that. And then Hank plays a little bit with Brad. He says, he's good at football, and they get down into like a 3-point stance and simulate a snap. And
Yep.
So that's a good moment.
Well, Dave hurts himself because he's old.
Hank, you mean?
Hank, yes. It's hard because
Hank's the old one.
The names are Dave, Hank, and Bob. About as Americana as it gets, but yeah, Hank hurts himself. He can't get out of his stance. He's an old man. I should have known better.
Old man. Yep. So then Bob talks a little bit about babies and pregnancies and mood swings, and the married gentleman comment on that, or maybe don't comment on it.
Right. It's a juxtaposition because in the garage you have kind of the men being the men. They're talking about their wives and women and cars and stuff. And then, meanwhile, inside you have the women talking about men, kind of doing the exact opposite. And that juxtaposition kind of happens throughout the episode. The women are riffing. Dave arrives finally. He's the last one there. And Karen, she's smitten.
Ooh,
I wrote that it was nice to see Karen speechless for once. She always has a lot to say.
Yeah, and it turns out that Dave and Karen have a lot in common. Dave coaches Mark's soccer team.
Yeah,
it's good to see that Mark gets some socialization out
there.
there.
Yeah, I bet he's really good. I can just imagine he's really a good soccer player.
Yeah, and then after soccer one day, Mark threw up in Karen's car. So that's kind of the common thread that they have there. Mark pulls them together.
Yep.
It's great. That
pulls us apart.
He sure does. So Jill distracts Dave as the scene goes on with movie suggestions as Tim tries to get him into the garage. Eventually he does, and I think the girls, they are trying to find a movie to go out and see, and instead they find out that Some Like It Hot, which is a Jack Lemmon movie, is going to be on TV, so they decide to stay in, and they decide to start a barbecue.
And then Wanda says, if I looked as good as Tony Burton does in a dress, oh yeah, or something like that.
Tony Curtis,
Tony
Burton.
Tony Burton is the trainer from Rocky. He probably looks good in a dress too, but yeah.
I would say so. Have you seen Some Like It Hot?
Yeah, but it's
been a while. I actually just watched
time.
it pretty recently.
It's been a long time. It's I don't know, I watched it when I was little and I was bored by it, but I'm sure I would appreciate it more now.
And yeah, it'd probably be a little bit different. It's a good performance. But yeah, Tony Burton in a dress and Tony Curtis in a dress, they're probably pretty similar.
Pretty similar, yeah.
Yeah.
I noted that in these scenes, this is probably a home improvement record for women on screen at the same time, and also probably a home improvement record for most women in an episode. You just don't get it very much.
No, it's nice to see everyone kind of there and interacting. And there's a lot going on in these scenes, it seems like, because they're bouncing between, as you said, the males and the females and what's going on and all this kind of stuff. So the men are excited about this barbecue. Everyone except Tim really is. Later inside, the women are in the kitchen and talking, as we've talked about before. Al walks in, and Leslie starts crying. They start talking about postpartum depression. Al contributes, saying that he knows what it's like to lose someone who was, so close to you. And Karen immediately relates. And you can kind of see that Al has a little bit of a thing for Karen right here, I would say. He's smitten with her because they have a shared experience. An actual shared experience, not like the Mark shared experience.
Al is a bona fide goon. I mean, he's
looking for anything and every excuse.
He's so strange right now. It's like he's talking about, losing something that he loved. Like Greta, he and Greta went out on maybe 2 dates. I think we have documented 2 dates. And then he says, later on, he says that Tim says Karen's a lot to handle, and Al says his mother's a lot to handle. He likes that, which is a funny line, but if you actually think about the implications of it, it's kind of troubling. So, yeah, Al is, they're still working on the Al character, and, hopefully they are able to flesh that out a bit more. I like my Al a little bit more confident, this is just, it's bizarre right now. He's just kind of, he just services punchlines.
He's a broken man right now. Greta really did a number on him.
Yeah.
Back in the garage, they're lowering the engine in. It seemed to me like there were way too many people to do this job. As you said earlier, like nobody's really doing anything except for one person lowering it by a pulley. This is like the second episode that we've gotten a lot of pulley action, which I know is probably an issue for you. You don't quite understand pulleys, so.
I think you don't understand pulleys as well as you think you do, is the problem here.
You said that Mark is pulling us apart, but I think pulleys are pulling us apart.
No, that's how we always suspected it would go. You always knew eventually you'd be chasing a rabbit down for an AM appointment, and that pulleys would cause a rift between us, and both have come true.
Those were the two things that I just were certain about.
Both have come true.
Yeah, but Jill comes in the garage. The food is ready, and all the guys start running out there. But Tim is upset. They just started working on this vehicle that he's so excited about, so he is throwing a tantrum. Later outside, Tim is manning the grill, and everyone inside is playing charades. It looks like they're having a good time, but Tim is mocking them instead. Jill comes outside, and Tim makes her play their own game of charades, where it turns out that Tim was trying to describe or act out that Jill is dead meat. So he's upset.
Tim seems like he's not that good at charades. because that took a long time to get to where he wanted it to go. I don't know.
I think it's convenient that he had everything there to make that happen, though. The meat's there.
Tim is getting more and more frustrated here as well because people are coming out and requesting things. And Bob comes out and he says that Leslie wants a burger. And he ends up taking a raw patty for Leslie, which seems detrimental to the baby.
Seems dangerous for everyone involved.
Yeah.
But Bob takes it. It seems like he's just a little bit of a novice in life. Or just scared of his wife. Maybe both. But
Yeah.
Who knows? So later, Tim is saying that Jill is obsessed with setting people up, and he's really contentious about this point. He basically had expectations of what his day he wanted.
This is a lot like the poker episode.
Yes.
Right? I think so.
Yep.
Feels like it.
Yep. So Hank comes in, and Tim leaves the stage as well, or outside, and goes inside. And Jill is left manning the grill now, and Wilson approaches, and this is our first, they didn't invite Wilson over to help, which I thought was interesting. He invites all of his friends over, he invites Al over to help, but he doesn't invite Wilson over. Tim, I'm saying here.
Right, yeah. I think Wilson's not, he's not so into the cars. I don't think this was meant to be a party so much as it was meant to be like a working thing, and I don't know, man.
It just seems like they don't need that many people to do all that stuff. And we'll hear later in this clip that Wilson knows everything about this vehicle. He's got quite the detail on it, which shows, that he's a good listener. But I don't know. If they're inviting Al, they might as well invite Wilson to me.
Well, let's just hear from Wilson right now as he talks to Jill. Let's go ahead and play that clip.
That smells delicious, good neighbor.
Hi, Wilson.
Oh, good neighborette. How are you this fine evening, Jill?
Fine and dandy.
That smells good.
You want a hamburger?
Well, I don't mind if I do.
Wilson, aren't human beings more important than machines?
Well, without a doubt. Although I am quite fond of my waffle maker.
Well, thank you. I wish you would tell that to that knucklehead I'm married to.
Oh, he knows how I feel. He's had my waffles.
No, I mean about the human being thing.
Well, I think Tim understands that.
Well, you would never know from the way that he's acting today.
Jill, I like my burger well done.
I mean, here I am trying to get these two people together, and all he can think about is this hunk of metal in the garage.
Well, that's because to him it's more than just a hunk of metal. To Tim, it's a 1934 Roadster street rod, Mystique midnight blue, queen bee headlights, suicide doors with hidden hinges, rolled rear panel. Oh, yeah.
I know it's important to him, so he lost a day, big deal, He's taking this so personally.
Jill, the Navajo Indians believe that when a craftsman makes a basket or a sand painting, his spirit actually enters the object, and he becomes a part of it.
So you're saying that the two become one?
That's about it.
So by dismissing the object, I've been dismissing the man. Thank you, Wilson.
Jill? Jill? The burger?
All right, so we have a subversion from what we normally see. Not Tim and Wilson kind of hashing it out the fence, but Jill and Wilson. And I believe we've seen this once before. Do you think?
Yeah, I don't remember
I can't remember, but it's
episode.
happened before. They're few and far between, but it does happen. Jill notes to Wilson. She asks, "Aren't human beings more important than machines?" Which isn't a real stretch. Like, that's a weird way to go about this whole situation, is by taking the approach that Tim cares more about his car than he cares about people. That's really not what's been on display this episode.
Yeah, she shows a lack of understanding there, but she'll show more understanding in a moment. So.
Definitely. Yeah, so essentially, as you just heard, Wilson notes that by dismissing the object, the car that Tim cares a lot about, she's dismissing the man. There's a back and forth where Jill offers Wilson a burger, but after she gets his advice, she heads in, and then Wilson is left with no burger. And
Poor Wilson.
LOL. L-O freaking L.
Wilson's not invited. He doesn't get a burger. He has to give advice. What? I mean, jeez.
He's getting a raw burger and a raw deal.
he's the real Rodney Dangerfield of this episode. So yeah, at this point, this is after. Next scene is after the barbecue. It's all over. Everyone is leaving. And I guess I should say before we get to the scene, I think this is good. This is some of Wilson's best advice that I've heard in a while.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, it seems...
And it's always... Jill always gets it.
Yeah, it's appropriate for the situation, which sometimes it's like, it seems too... I don't know, like the problem is so small and the advice is, so like big and broad, whereas this seems to fit kind of what's happening very, very... It's a good fit, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. So, next scene, everyone is leaving... Al thinks his Western shirt paid off because he thinks Karn is into him. Al, Tim tries to show him down. This is what you mentioned earlier about how Al was saying that he likes handfuls, and Tim says that Karen's a handful and all that stuff about his mom, which is a bit strange. Karn then walks in, and Al, he's in full goon mode, as you said. His hand is like raised up like he wants a high five. I'm not sure what he wants from that, and then doesn't get it, so he kind of plays it off. He's going to ask Karen if they'd like to get coffee sometime, but in between that moment where he gets Karen's attention, Dave says, "Karen, are you ready to go?" So it seems that Dave and Karen are leaving together. We see Al's heart break in front of our eyes.
The moment prior to, where Al is about to ask Karen out was a lot like in the first Mission Impossible movie when Tom Cruise is hanging down from that wire and he's just inches away from the laser, and if he hits a laser it'll go off and like sweat is trickling down. I had the same kind of feeling during this. I was so nervous.
Yeah, you were very sweaty. You sent me pictures afterwards of just like copious pit stains.
Yeah, just on my shirt. It was just drenched. It was so nerve-wracking. Karen and Dave, they're going out for coffee at, I don't know, 10 o'clock at night, conservatively.
I hope decaf.
You would hope so, but yeah, just going to one of those nice, Bloomfield Hills PM coffee bars, which I guess, doesn't make a ton of sense, but whatever. Jill... I
thought they were going to go to Big Mike's Tavern.
It'd be some pretty lousy coffee there. You get a good stinky, though.
Yeah, you'd get a real good stinky, especially that time of night.
Jill... Dave and Karen leave together, and then Jill kind of walks into the frame, and she just starts like kind of gloating and celebrating, and she's very, very pleased with herself. And I don't know, I feel like there should be a follow-up episode where we discuss why Jill is so interested in setting people up, because she notes earlier that everybody likes to set people up, but she seems especially into it. Like, she cares too much. But she's gloating and dancing around, and Al is standing there visibly sad. Tim is kind of standing behind her, trying to give her the sign that, kind of non-verbally telling her what has happened and that Al is sad, and she finally realizes and kind of backtracks and says that, she could be wrong about the whole thing, but essentially Al is very sad and he decides it's time to go.
Yep, it definitely is time to go, and, right before he leaves, Tim does something nice. He asks if Al would come and help him by himself with the wiring tomorrow. So that cheers him up a bit, and Tim, he was a bit callous earlier and not very thoughtful in not inviting Al initially, but now he's kind of doing something nice.
Later on in the garage, winding it down here, Tim is, he's kind of, I guess he's working on the car alone. Jill enters and she begins to kind of try to take an interest in the hot rod. And this scene goes on a while, but essentially she's kind of asking questions, and then she sort of begins to, I guess, imitate a mechanic of sorts. I don't know. I mean, she puts the hat on and she gets a bunch of terminology wrong, which is supposed to be funny, but not if you don't know what the terminology means in the first place, which I didn't.
Yeah, it would have fooled me.
Right. So yeah, I don't know. Tweaked out or whatever she says. But yeah, slowly I guess we're gonna play a clip here, aren't we? I should stop while I'm ahead.
Yeah, I guess we'll play a clip for the last 15 seconds of this scene.
Gotta tell you, Tim, this street rod is real tweaky.
It's tweaked out.
Exactly. It's cherry. I'm really getting into this engine stuff. I feel an uncontrollable urge to torque something.
Hey, you really want to see something?
Yeah.
Get on my crawler.
All right.
Lay down. Watch your head. Can't really appreciate an engine until you see it from all sides.
Oh, this is so cool.
Welcome to the wonderful world of the small block 350.
Tim,
Oh?
I thought you were going to show me the engine.
I call this my engine.
Yeah, so at the end of the scene, she is ready to torque something. So we get another Home Improvement After Dark. So they go under the car and they make out, and Tim introduces his engine, I guess.
What do you think that was referring to? I didn't get it.
I'll tell you later.
It was too subtle. Yeah, I don't know.
Too subtle. So outside at night, Tim is reading. I'm not sure how he could see.
Again, it's at this point it's probably midnight. Based on how the day is set up and the logic of what we've seen. Yeah, he's reading a magazine. It's like pitch black and he's sitting in a lawn chair. It felt like this scene was maybe not as well plotted as it could have been. But
yeah, it doesn't make a whole ton of sense. But the boys come home. Apparently they did not get the McGurn boys like they wanted to, so they have some leftover balloons. And Tim quickly hides one as Jill comes out to chase the boys away. And he hides one in his shirt. He tries to defend the boys, saying that, you don't know what they were doing with those balloons. Maybe they were making balloon animals. And Jill initially says, maybe you're right, I'm being too hard on them. But then she pops the balloon in his shirt because she knows better. So that is the end of the episode.
Well, there are some bloopers after.
Yeah, some really funny bloopers with Al and his giant hat.
And then we roll credits.
And then we
fade to black. And that is Heavy Meddle. Jordan, what'd you think of this one?
I think easily the best episode of the season so far. Something different for the most part. Like, we have different characters here. We have a kind of a little bit of a different premise where we have people trying to set people up. And I think all of the guest stars did a pretty good job of acting. I think, as we said earlier, Wanda really takes the cake out of all of them. And
oh, yeah! If I looked as good as Tony Curtis in a dress, oh, baby. She sounds like Nick Nolte.
That sounded a little bit like Jim Durante to me, but...
Oh, yeah. Is that the Frosty the Snowman guy?
Yes, it is.
There must have been some magic in that old silk hat they found.
That's one of your better impressions, I'd say.
I think they're all good.
Yeah,
you know that's true.
Yeah. So I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was very entertaining and had a lot going on. So a win for everything for me.
Tight script here. I felt like it's we didn't. I think we both know we didn't take as many notes because there's a lot of cutting, but it's relatively simple. They're in the same setting. Everything kind of goes full circle and ties together. I felt like it just seemed the jokes were crisp and funny, and all the loose ends kind of came together, with the exception of the somewhat extraneous McGurn boys stuff, and I guess that was just to sort of service the kids so that they weren't just hanging around the party. I guess at least they tried to explain that. But yeah, I think some funny jokes here. I like the guest stars for the most part, and it's a fun episode. Definitely the best of this season, I would say.
Yeah, I got to say that the Taylor boys really make a lot of enemies. They had that bully at the bowling alley, and they had Curtis, who we all know and love, and now the McGurn boys.
That teacher that Brad put a frog in the in the Jello. It's a tough year.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
The 90s where bullying was rampant.
That's right.
A Mr. Bruni taught class would indicate.
A lot of rude dudes out there.
A lot of rude dudes. So good episode, and I as we both said, the best of this season, and hopefully it continues because I don't know. I've been entirely less enthused with the episodes this year, but let's hope that this puts us on the right track.
That's right. Let's put our social media on the right track. If people want to contact us, they can do so in a variety of different ways. Go ahead and reach out to us on Facebook at facebook.com/Home Impodcast. Our website, thehomeimpodcast.com, where you can write to us there. There's a link to our email, or you can support us there as well. And then on Twitter, we're at Home Impodcast. So lots of different avenues there. Adam, any interesting polls that have been going up the last week or so?
I'm so glad you asked, Jordan. I put up, looks like 4 or 5 polls yesterday. I don't know. I think all the talk about pulleys and kind of the alliteration and just the words seeming so alike that polls were just on my mind. So I came up with a few, and These are not final calculations. This is where we're at now.
In progress.
They're in progress. So we have 6 hours left on all these, but we're gonna maybe set Home Impodcast records with our number of votes in these polls, which is not saying very much, but small victories, I say. All right. So the first poll: who is worse? 80% say Karen, 20% say Mark. So it's just Karen or Mark. 80% say Karen. I think that makes sense. I wanted to keep it simple. Who would you rather chill with? 58% say Wilson, 25% Tim, 9% Greta Post, 8% Randy.
Huh, Randy. Wow.
He's cool. He's the coolest kid.
I know, but only, did you say 8%?
Yeah, I said more people want to hang out with Greta than Randy. I guess probably like the men that are voting on this thing.
Yeah,
Greta's attractive and they don't want to hang out with like a young boy.
That's probably a good thing,
reasons.
actually.
Which child has the perceived brightest future? 69% Randy. 16% the one in the basement. I just made that up. 15% Brad, 0% Mark. So there are more votes for a fictitious child they're locking away in the basement than Mark and Brad combined.
Well, really, the child in the basement has nowhere to go but up.
Indeed. Literally.
Exactly.
Could Tim do better than Jill? 77% say no. 23% say yes. That's good. Could Jill do better than Tim? 67% say yes, 33% say no. Well, a little bit close. And that's it for the polls. So we have 6 hours left. If there's a major shift in the next 6 hours, we'll talk about them next week. If not, then...
Make your voice heard, everybody.
Yeah, well, it'll be too late at this point. But
that's
the problem with recording weeks in, a week in advance or so.
Tweet at us if the polls are closed. We want to hear. We want to hear what you got to say.
And I don't know if you mentioned this earlier. Perhaps you did, but I will say it again. If you haven't already done so, please rate and review us on iTunes. It's been a minute on that, and that helps people find us. And then again, if you want to support the show, our website has a tab. We are, we're forever looking for support, donors, sponsors, things of that nature. And if you like what we're doing, let's help us keep the lights on. For crying out loud. So
yeah, I don't want to record in the dark.
That would just be hard. Then it would actually be home improvement after dark.
Yeah,
because it would just be dark.
I don't want that.
Dark in our studios. So
that'll change our rating on the show. So we want this to be a family show. I guess that leads us to the question of the week.
Jordan, my question to you is this. So this episode features Eileen Brennan. She plays the wondrous Wanda, a.k.a. Firecracker. And she is most notably, in my opinion, she plays Miss Peacock in Clue, a very funny film based off a board game. Jordan, I want to know, what are your favorite games?
Yeah, I love board games. Pretty much all of them, but some of my favorites, Scattergories. I like that game. I like pretty much any trivia game, like Trivial Pursuit, or we played Bezer Whizzer, which is a very similar game. I used to play Risk a lot when I was younger. Monopoly.
We played Monopoly in high school quite a bit.
Yeah.
You would tell them about your special hat you'd put on.
I forgot about that. There was some really weird, like, old-fashioned hat. Not quite the same hat that Al wears.
It's like a bowler hat.
Was it?
Yeah.
I thought it was different than that. Well, whatever. I was always the hat piece. That was my piece, like, the car and the cat. So I had to wear that hat on my head.
You didn't have to. You chose to.
I had no choice. You guys bullied me into it.
You would voluntarily go to the closet, pull out this hat, put it on, and then just proceed to just bank the whole. You just.
I was gonna say, to be fair, I won every time.
Well, hey, I mean, you may have won, but I think you also lost it each time you put that hat on. We were really cool in high school. I think it is
still are.
The moral of that story.
Yeah, we played. We played.
You put that hat on.
I'm glad you remembered that because I had no recollection. Yeah. We played Balderdash a couple times at your house, which I enjoyed. I just got that for Christmas, actually.
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover here between you and I. My favorite game is Beyond Balderdash. That's been a family favorite of mine for, 15, 20 years at this point. I, too, like Scattergories a lot. Trivial Pursuit. I like Password. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Monopoly is fun every once in a while, but the first couple I mentioned are my favorites. Balderdash takes the cake, though, for me.
Yeah, it's a great one. I haven't played that in a long time, but since I got it for Christmas, I'll be breaking into it soon with a group of unsuspecting friends.
Oh,
No
man.
hat though. I don't have a hat to wear for this.
Yeah, well, that can be arranged. So that can be arranged. All right. Well, that's is heavy metal. Jordan, what are we covering next week?
We're gonna cover. This will be episode 30 of the episodes that we've covered. Haunting of Taylor House. So maybe we've got a Halloween episode coming up, which is always exciting.
That is going to be good. I love a good Halloween ep. Perhaps more than I like a good Christmas ep. So, yeah, we are. I think we're probably in for a spooktacular time next week.
Let's just say it's going to be a treat.
All right. Well, Jordan, thanks for joining me this week, and thank you, listeners, as well. I guess I should say take care.
Take care, everybody.